Angelicus Spurb.
Hello and welcome to episode 100. That's 100 episodes. That's been over 4 years of my time. So wow, episode 100. That's today. Today we're going to be talking about an interesting herb of the world, Maca Root, or Lepidium meyenii. So, and again, I don't speak Latin. I really only speak English well, and I speak a little bit of Spanish and a little bit of Chinese, and that's about it. So please excuse all my other pronunciations as we go along. But here we go, Maca Root, or Lepidium meyenii. This episode is our 100th episode. I can't believe I made it this way. We will explore another interesting herb of the world, Maca Root, or Lepidium meyenii. It is reported to be helpful for treating libido, fertility, and possibly menopause. We will be doing our deep dive into this herb and find out if there's any evidence for these effects. And as usual, we will be adding something a little different. I figured this is the 100th episode. What a great time for looking at the future of medicine. I wish I had reverb. Future of medicine. It is going to be another fascinating exploration into the world of herbs. Please keep listening. Before we get into it, just wanted to let you know that we are starting an amazing special for our courses. If you use them for continuing education, professional development, or just for your own edification, we are offering 50 hours of courses for an unbelievable price. Normally, this would cost $750. However, with the special code 50 CEUs, that's 50 CEUS, this is going to be only $325 or only $650 per hour. Plus, you can get a free signed copy of one of my books. Just pay for shipping and handling. That is a free copy of Integrative Pharmacology, combining modern pharmacology with integrative medicine, or Playing the Game, a step-by-step approach to accepting insurance as an acupuncturist. Just go to the webpage, www.integrativemedicinecouncil.org/CEUS1, the number 1. So that's Integrative Medicine Council, COUNCIL.org/CEUS1 for this amazing deal. And if 50 hours is too much, like for example, if you need your now NCCOM PDAs, National Certification Commission of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, professional development activities, if you need those, you don't need 50. They only require 40 every 4 years. We do have equally good special for 20, well, maybe not equally, but almost as good special for 25 hours of courses. So at the same place, integrativemedicinecouncil.org/CEUS1. Hope to see you there. So let's talk about the future of medicine. Many of you may not know that I'm a bit of a tech person, and my favorite podcast, other than this one, of course, is This Week in Tech. Leo Laporte hosts several tech journalists and thinkers in a weekly roundtable. One of his recurring guests is Amy Webb, a futurist. And man, she has the career I would love to have. A futurist who, through her company, the Future Today Strategy Group, publishes an annual trend report. And it's completely free. I would suggest you go take a look at it. And it's at ftsg.com. So Future Today Strategy Group, ftsg.com. And I thought today, on our 100th episode, instead of looking backward, we would look to the future of medicine. And this whole thing that I'm talking about is based on the 2025 Tech Trends Report from that Future Today Strategy Group, and it's 2025, so it's brand spanking new. And there is a lot in this report about the future of medicine. Some of it is broader trends, and some are very specific technologies. And some of it is interesting, but probably has minimal to little impact on the practice of herbology, acupuncture, and other integrative medicine. And some of it is quite relevant. So we have some time today. So we will look at all of these, some more in depth than others as we go along. And we will still not come close to discussing everything in this report. This is the future of medicine was, I think, about, medicine in this thing. I think it was about 30 or 40 pages in a report that was over 1,000 pages, I think. So, I mean, it's the future of everything. It's really good. And if you listen to Amy Webb speak, I mean, just her background is amazing. So it's really cool. And it's not based, one of the things that's really interesting is not based on what she thinks is coming or anything like that. This is stuff that she has seen prototypes for, that this is where we're going, and she's working with all these big companies, and she knows that this is where things are leading, and she uses a statistical model for this. So it's not airy-fairy at all. It's really well grounded and well put together. So can't talk more about Amy Webb or the Future Today Strategy Group. So go check them out. So let's talk. So she breaks it down into several different sort of categories under medicine. And so the first one that she talks about is she calls the business of medicine. And so here are some of the bullet points that she says under the business of medicine. We'll go through this in each of the different groupings. So big tech has and continues to disrupt healthcare. Big tech is pushing into healthcare through artificial intelligence, cloud infrastructure, and consumer-driven innovations, such as through wearables and monitoring technology. So, is this relevant to us as herbalists and acupuncturists and all that? I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I think wearables and monitoring technologies right now can be very useful to us if we're practitioners and just looking at the health of our patients. I think that could be very, very useful. But there isn't like, oh man, how cool would it be to have a watch that actually shows pulses and things along those lines? It's not just pulse rate, but the actual pulse quality. Is it slippery? Is it wiry? All that sort of stuff. And I've seen some of this stuff coming out of China. I don't know if I trust any of it at this point, but it's more for teaching rather than for diagnosis. But interesting stuff. So, big tech is pushing through this. I don't know about you guys. Anytime now I do a search for anything regarding our profession, there's always the artificial intelligence summary. I either am looking at something that is artificial intelligence, or it's Google and it has an artificial intelligence summary at the top. The cloud infrastructure, I don't know about you guys, but I have electronic medical records, and that is in the cloud. So interesting stuff there. So that's just our first bullet point. There's a lot more to go. Let's keep going. Direct-to-consumer healthcare models are reshaping patient expectations and experiences. And this is accomplished through personalized and technology-driven solutions, challenging traditional healthcare providers. I think, one of the things that does well for us as integrative medicine practitioners is there's a bit of a backlash to the in-person, the medical field's perceived lack of caring, I think would be the best way to do it. And so often we can get in there and deliver very personalized care. And I think that's a lot of what this is. However, a lot of what they're talking about here is that this direct to consumer healthcare is kind of eliminating or minimizing the doctor's involvement. So for example, if you want an erectile dysfunction drug, you don't have to go to your doctor and ask for it. There's all these companies that will do it. They can do it online. They have doctors involved in this process where they say, okay, you're good here. We're going to give you the prescription. And so you're not actually talking with a doctor particularly. And there's that, and it's done with the GLP-1 agonists, which are the Wegovy and the all the weight loss drugs that are out now. They have the same sort of approach to it. So that's what they're kind of talking about here. Health, and especially mental health at the workplace. So that's an interesting one. The idea there is that is going to drive down costs for the employers. Like, I've been in this for a while now, and I've heard this my entire my entire career, that there's going to be a lot of acupuncture. It has a great place in the workplace. And what I have found over the years is that comes and goes as trends happen with businesses, as they try to pull back on money, all that sort of stuff. So I think there is a trend. I just don't think it's a very strong trend in that. Health equity is a trend looking at closing the gaps in healthcare for vulnerable populations. I think you can make a case for right now, as I'm recording this, Trump pulling back on a lot of these sort of programs. But I do think as companies and what have you, they're still going to continue. And so I think health equity is definitely part of the business of medicine. And finally, as a bullet point on this slide, at least, is the environmental impacts of healthcare. So how can we minimize those environmental impacts? And as an acupuncturist, I can say I have worries about that. We have individually tubed needles. And so what do we do with those little plastic tubes? Are we adding to plastics in the environment? Are they biodegradable? What about the needles themselves? Are they reused once we put them into the sharps and send them off? I don't think so. So I'd love, some more on the environmental impacts of healthcare. I think that's going to continue to have some trend lines as well. And so that's the business of medicine. Let's go into healthcare administration. Health data infrastructure, especially enhancing and improving electronic health record systems. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. I do have, I do, and I think a lot of us have electronic health record systems, EHR systems. And where we're working with that is increased usability, interoperability. In other words, if you have one EHR system, it can communicate with a different EHR system. And of course, security. We're going to talk some more about security later on as well. Security can increase the usefulness of data for AI and research. Think about this. If we have EHRs and we can get our data into bigger databases, without our patients' information, of course, can we then do some interesting research and see what acupuncture can do from that perspective? And I think the answer is yeah, that's a really good possibility, but we're not there yet. Another healthcare administration bullet point is defining patient access to medical data. We'll continue to balance transparency, privacy, and data sharing. That, I think, is just a major trend line in technology, all told. Interoperability of data infrastructure will allow for data exchange. I mentioned that earlier. Automation of processes can reduce cost, increase efficiency, and allow greater focus on patient care. Now, how cool would it be? We're not there yet, but how cool would it be if they can, with at least in the U.S., a HIPAA approved process, listen in on our patients, and then actually with AI make a chart note that we can go in and make sure it's okay. That would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? And then certainly would reduce my cost of doing my time and all that, increase my efficiency, all that, and allow me to focus more on the patient care rather than what I'm going to put in the notes or what questions specifically I need to form in order to have the notes be a little bit more coherent. I still probably need to do that even in this, but that's an area that they're working on. I don't think we're there yet. And one of the other trend lines, and these aren't all just positive trend lines, there's negative ones, is increased cybersecurity threats. I think there's a huge issue with cybersecurity, and especially in medicine because of all the sensitive data that we have. So another large heading is remote care. In-home consumer health technology can enhance self-care, real-time monitoring, and remote patient management. And I think in general, in this next one, scaling of telemedicine can increase access to care, integrate innovative technologies, and reduce barriers for underserved populations. I think telemedicine is something that we can participate in. I know in California, we weren't allowed to do telemedicine until the pandemic, and now I think it's part of our within our scope of practice to do telemedicine. Obviously, I don't think acupuncture does very well as telemedicine, but we certainly can do some diagnostics and do some herb prescriptions and recommendations remotely, and I think that's really interesting, especially in the context of this podcast. And remote patient monitoring has the potential to improve patient outcomes, reduce costs, and expand access, especially for those with chronic conditions. I don't know, again, if that applies to us yet, but you never know when it might. Another big heading is emerging diagnostics. So smart materials such as smart textiles. This one I think is really fascinating. This is the idea that you put on a shirt and it actually keeps track of your body temperature and your heart rate and your breathing rate and all that sort of stuff. And also kind of can keep you cool or warm, whatever it needs to do. That's really interesting. I think we're near future. We're starting to see them, but they're not ready for prime time yet. But that's really cool. There's biosensor and chip-based diagnostics. This is interesting stuff too, where, you know, a doctor in the office can draw a drop of blood, let's say, and put it on a chip-based diagnostics system and have all your blood work and genetics potentially right there for you. That would be pretty cool. Biosensors would be sort of more real-time processing. We're kind of doing that now a little bit with our watches and other devices, but that's just going to expand into the future. Molecular diagnostics refers to the process of analyzing biological markers in the genome and proteome, which is the proteins, to diagnose and monitor disease. We're getting there. We're getting there. I've seen a lot of this happen in the labs. It's not quite in the public or in available yet, but it's getting close, really close. Point of care diagnostics are rapidly evolving with advances like home-based cardiovascular risk tests showing comparable accuracy to clinical tests. Extended reality, XR, combined with artificial intelligence is enabling more accurate, faster, and accessible medical assessments. How cool would it be? You don some XR glasses and you look at a patient and they tell you things about that patient right off the bat. Like just by scanning, it'll tell you everything that, you know, their heart rate and their respiratory rate and their temperature, all that sort of stuff. How cool would that be? And we're there. We're getting there. Medical, and here's the negative, medical deep fakes involve the creation of highly realistic yet entirely fabricated images, videos, or audio clips generated by AI, artificial intelligence. These deep fakes can be used to mislead patients, manipulate healthcare professionals, and enable malicious activities. So that's the downside of some of this emerging stuff. So that was emerging diagnostics. Let's talk about emerging treatments. We have nanobots. You know, these have been the purview of science fiction for a long time now, and we're getting there. We're working on it. Augmented and virtual reality therapeutic technologies immerse patients in realistic, computer-generated environments where they can practice coping mechanisms and learn new behaviors in a safe, controlled space. I think that's really useful for mental health practitioners. I think what's interesting is there's a lot of this happening in the training of doctors, especially surgeons. And I think it might be interesting to do some of that eventually with our fields as well. In-womb treatments are happening. So before the baby's born, that's pretty interesting. And cognitive and neural optimization leverages substances and technologies designed to enhance brain function, improving areas such as memory, focus, and mental clarities. And one of these nootropics, also known as smart drugs or brain boosters, are central to this trend. And there's been a lot of this. There's been, what I've seen is a lot of haphazard, I'm not going to even say research, just experimentation. And you see this a lot when you do, some of the billionaires in the tech industry, you hear them talking about work, microdosing this or microdosing that sort of thing in order to help this sort of thing. So this is interesting stuff, and we're getting there. More research is definitely necessary there, but it's an interesting area. Continuing with emerging treatments, we have brain-computer interfaces and neuroprosthetics are enabling seamless communication between the brain and external devices. There have been people who have been implanted with computer chips and are using that to interact with the world. Elon Musk has a company that's kind of one of the leaders in that space, but that's happening. It's definitely occurring right now. Precision medicine is transforming healthcare by tailoring treatments to individual genetic, molecular, and environmental profiles. Now, this is an interesting one. I think this is going to be a really, really hot one. If you have a drug that, say, only works on 40% of the people, well, that's not a very good drug. But if we can look at these factors and determine which exactly 40% that drug is useful for, that drug becomes incredibly useful in the overall scheme of things. Now, transfer that into herbs. Like if we could do this, and we're a long way from this, I don't think there's any research on this, but you never know in China, there might be. If we can do that with herbs and go, hey, this patient is going to be particularly reactive to this herb and not do much, this other herb isn't going to do much for them, that really helps us with our recommendations. So I can see that eventually trickling down to us in our field. And here I think is always important in all our field and other fields is expanding medical mis and disinformation. The rapid spread of health misinformation on social media, exacerbated by AI advancements in influencer content, is eroding trust in legitimate health information. Platforms like YouTube are introducing measures to verify credible sources, but challenges persist. I'll tell you, challenges persist. I just had one of I have, I don't know, 60 or so podcasts up. My last one got taken down from YouTube because they said I said something that was inappropriate, and it led me right to the line. And I'm like, no, there's nothing inappropriate there. In fact, there's nothing there that I'm actually saying. I'm comparing an herb we're talking about with other herbs. It has nothing to do with mis or disinformation. I still need to challenge it, but they took it right down. So, and then I protested, and they said, nope, your protest isn't good. You need to, if you're going to do it, here's the next step you need to do. And I can only assume those first two steps were AI because it made no sense from a human point of view what was going on. So I know YouTube is definitely doing this. Implants, prosthetics, and wearables are next heading. Emerging implants, innovations in implant technology powered by advanced materials and energy harvesting are enabling smaller, more efficient, and biocompatible medical devices. These emerging implants are transforming healthcare by offering adaptive and minimally invasive solutions. Can you imagine someday if they inject a little implant or nanobot into your artery and it goes through and it cleans out all the atherosclerosis? I mean, how cool would that be? And I don't see that as being all that far away. Of course, it's always, what do they say? Everything is always 5 to 10 years away. And that goes on for 100 years, that sort of thing. But it seems like we're going down that route. Advanced prosthetics are happening. That's pretty cool. They're actually using brain waves to control prosthetics. So you could have your hand, controlled normally by your brain and have it work pretty well. So that's advanced prosthetics. Emerging wearable technologies are revolutionizing health monitoring with devices like continuous glucose monitors, smartwatches, and sensor-embedded smart fabrics, offering real-time insights into personal health metrics. And I don't know about you, but I've got my Apple Watch on and use it daily and look at my health stuff all the time. So definitely doing that. And finally, there are mature wearables. Wearable technology has evolved from fitness tracking to become a crucial tool for personal health monitoring. With innovations in sleep, heart, and hearing health, wearables offer real-time health insights and make proactive care more accessible. And I think our last heading here is research. So synthetic health data offers a privacy-preserving alternative to real-world patient data, enabling AI model training, clinical research, and healthcare innovations without compromising confidentiality. However, its accuracy and application require careful validations. So this is interesting. Being able to make up decent health data, synthetic health data, can really help training and in research and all that. So we're working on it. It's a fascinating thing to me. It's like a little bit weird, but also a little bit interesting, a little bit cool. New trial methods in silico, which means in silicon chips, basically virtual reality and remote clinical trials are transforming medical research, reducing costs, enhancing trial design, and making trials more accessible while providing reliable regulatory evidence for drug and medical device development. Lab-on-a-chip devices are revolutionizing diagnostics by integrating complex laboratory functions onto a single miniaturized platform, enabling faster, cost-effective, and portable testing across healthcare, biotechnology, and environmental fields. Excuse me. 3D bioprinting is an advanced tissue engineering technique that constructs tissue by layering bioactive substances such as living cells and biomaterials into complex 3D structures. This addresses the demand for customized implants and reduces reliance on organ donors. And finally, quantum computing has the potential to transform scientific research across industries by enabling faster data processing, simulations, and problem solving, especially in healthcare and drug discovery. I think quantum computing, is sort of the technology of the future. If you're talking about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and all the AI companies say, we're going to have that in the next year or two. I say total BS. They're changing the definition of AGI. There's no way we're getting artificial generalized intelligence. Basically means it acts and talks and thinks like humans. I think the stage to that, there may be other pathways there, but I think the way we're probably going to get there is through quantum computing. Quantum computing isn't there yet. So I don't think any of the things that we're doing today with artificial intelligence will get us to artificial general intelligence. But that's my opinion, and others as well. So wow, that was a lot. I'm always excited about where we are going, and what I like about this Future Trends report is it is very good at looking at emerging trends, but doesn't shy away from the potential harmful trends as well. This should give us a lot to think about and how we can add to and use these trends in our professions. And with that, let's get into our herb of the day, and that is Maca Root, or Lepidium meyenii. So it's from the family Brassiaceae, which we've talked about earlier. We'll do a little bit of a recap on that. The species here is Lepidium meyenii WALP, W-A-L-P. Remember, that refers to the biologist who first classified it. Its medicinal part is the root, hence we're saying the Maca Root. And other names include Peruvian ginseng, Ayak chichira, Ayak wilku, ginseng andin, Lepidium peruvianum, maga, maino, maca with a K rather than a C, and Peruvian maca. You see, there's a lot of Peruvians in there because this is, we're going to find out, is originally grown in Peru. So before we get into that, let's talk about the Brassiaceae family. According to Petruzzulo, the Brassiaceae family, formerly called Cruciferae, is commonly known as the mustard family of flowering plants. It includes 338 genera and 3,700 species, many of which are well-known vegetables and spices. These include cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, kohlrabi, turnip, rutabaga, radish, horseradish, and white mustard. And this is interesting because, if you look at pictures of this, it's often described of and does look very much like a radish or a turnip. So definitely is very similar in this family. There are also several ornamentals in this family. The plants in this family are usually herbs which may be annuals, biennials, or perennials. And the leaves are mostly simple and arranged alternatively. And many are peppery in taste. I think of radish, horseradish, of course, mustard. The flowers are in the form of a cross or cruciform with 4 petals and 4 sepals. They are usually white, yellow, or lavender. We're going to see those are actually included in this, but there are other colors with maca as well. So let's talk a little bit about the history of maca. So according to Wikipedia, okay, I always want to say this, I'm not a fan of Wikipedia as a source. I will often use it and then kind of go to other places with it. But in general, it's not bad. And I always double check what's going on. And I had several sources that definitely supported what is here from Wikipedia. So I kind of use it as a starting off point and rarely will refer to it, but I'm doing that today. So according to Wikipedia, Antonio Vasquez de Espinosa first described the plant after visiting Peru in 1598. This followed by another description by Bernabe Cobo in the early 17th century. Lepidium meyenii was named in 1843 by the German botanist Gerhard Walpers. So remember WALP, W-A-L-P, that is short for Walpers. In the 1990s, Gloria Chacon thought the cultivated maca was a different domesticated species, and she called it Lepidium peruvianum. Most botanists do not agree with this distinction, and Lepidium meyenii is still the standard name. However, a 2015 study actually did find differences between these two types and concluded they should not be considered synonymous. So interesting. So I would expect that we're going to see, Lepidium peruvianum come off of this, as a different species in the near future, but we're not there yet. Gonzalez says, who's an author of a study, says maca has been cultivated in the Peruvian Central Andes. Maca was probably domesticated in San Blas, Junin, present-day Honduras, some 1,300 to 2,000 years ago. The first written description about maca as a root without identification of the botanical or popular name was published in 1553, in which Cieza de Leon, a chronicler of the Spaniard conquest of Peru, noted that in the Peruvian highlands, particularly in the province of Bombón, which is Chinchacocha, present-day Junin, the natives used certain roots for maintenance. The roots he was referring to were maca. Father Cobo was the first to describe the name of maca and its properties in 1653. He stated that this plant grows in the harshest and coldest areas of the province of Chinchacocha, where no other plant for man's sustenance could be grown. Cobo also referred to the use of maca for fertility. In the 18th century, Ruiz referred to the fertility-enhancing properties of maca and also its stimulant effect. So other information about this particular herb. Some sources indicate there are 3 colors of maca available: yellow, red, and black. While some sources say there may be slightly different health benefits with each color, they also say they are very similar. One source says black maca has better effects on sperm production than yellow maca, which has only moderate effects. Red maca, however, has no effect on sperm production. However, red maca has been shown to reduce prostate size in rats, which prostate hyperplasia has been induced with testosterone enanthate. Yellow maca has shown moderate effects here, whereas black maca has not shown any effects. Minnick et al. In 2024 say there are up to 17 different colors of maca. They had quite a little visual for that too, showing all the different colors. The Maca team. So the Maca team is a website that sells maca. So take all of this with a grain of salt. The Maca team says light beige to deep golden roots are grouped together and categorized as yellow maca. Yellow maca roots make up approximately 60% of the annual harvest, making them the most common and most researched of all maca types. Light pink to deep purple maca roots are categorized as red maca and make up about 25% of the annual harvest. Red maca has been shown to have more phytonutrient content and to be higher in antioxidants than the other major colors. Light gray to dark gray roots are put together and categorized as black maca. These roots make up just about 15% of the annual harvest, making them the rarest of the 3 colors. Black maca has been associated with increased energy, muscle building, and focus. Again, this is from a site selling this, and while I did see a study or two that talked about the different colors and a little bit about the differences between them, none of them seemed very strong research to base all this on. So it doesn't mean it's not right. It just means we need more evidence in my book, before we can start really saying these things. Other uses: maca is one of the few sources of nourishment in the cold, high altitude of the Andes, and is used as food in several capacities, including as a root vegetable and dried and powdered as a flour. The roots can also be fermented into a weak beer called chicha de maca. Traditional uses. So none of our usual text has an entry on maca. So, my usual text, I look at the PDR for herbal medicines. I actually also, with these herbs of the world, I also look up several books that I have that kind of translate Western herbs into Chinese medicine. That includes The Energetics of Western Herbs by Holmes and Western Herbs According to Traditional Chinese Medicine, a Practitioner's Guide by Guerin. None of those had entries on maca. Kubala and Palsdottir discuss traditional medicinal uses of maca, saying it was used for treating respiratory conditions and rheumatic disease. They continue to say potential modern uses include help with libido, sexual function, fertility, menopause, mood and energy, as well as cognitive function, benign prostatic hyperplasia, wound healing, and may be anti-inflammatory and prebiotic. WebMD says potential benefits include erectile dysfunction, menopause, female sexuality, fertility, and overall health and energy. Healthline, which is that Kubala and Pals-Dotier that I mentioned earlier, says the optimal doses of maca, let's talk about dosage and preparation, optimal doses have not been established, but doses between 1.5 to 3 grams per day have been used in studies. WebMD similarly says 1.5 to 3.5 grams daily. So that seems to be sort of agreed on. The Maca team, however, which again, remember, is a seller of Maca, says a typical dosage is between 3 and 9 grams per day, with modifications made based on the quality of the Maca and patient's age, health, and body weight. So, obviously they're selling it, so if they can get higher doses, they sell more of it, so that's fine. But I also would generally say in general, having, being an expert in Chinese herbs and seeing doses that often happen in, at least in Western world and studies, the studies do tend to have lower doses than we would prescribe in a lot of stuff in general. I mean, that's a broad stroke to say. So, I don't think it may be unreasonable to have higher doses of this, like the Maca team says. But I don't, this is just what the literature says. And since I don't use Maca on a regular basis, I really am not one to talk about the specific dosing on this. But that's what my research showed. Quality. There are lots of companies on the web saying their Maca products are better than others. That's normal, isn't it? Some say it is because their product respects traditions. Others because it has been thoroughly tested and processed. Others because it has the highest content of whatever they believe is the active ingredient in Maca. The bottom line is there was no description of what quality Maca looks like, which is what I'm often, when I look at quality of herbs, that's what I'm looking at. It's like, if you saw this in a market, how can you tell good Maca from bad Maca? There does seem to be some potential indicators of good Maca. Maca should be grown in appropriate conditions in high elevations with dry, cold environment. It should be free of any contaminants, such as heavy metals and other toxins. And the only way you can really do that is through testing. And several say it should be GMO-free, so that's genetically modifications-free. But I really don't think that this is an issue, given it's not easy to genetically modify crops, and this is not a huge crop in the general scheme of things. So, they talk about, I honestly think that was more of a thing from the seller saying, hey, ours is GMO-free, ours is GMO-free. Well, everyone's was GMO-free. I didn't see any seller of Maca that didn't say it was GMO-free, which kind of tells me there's no such thing as GMO Maca. So it becomes a selling point that I don't think is really a distinguishing factor. So that's quality. So what does it do in Chinese medicine? So according to the White Rabbit Institute of Healing, which is an interesting site because you're going to often find Western herbs and what it does in Chinese medicine there. It's a good source for this information. So the White Rabbit Institute of Healing, according to them, Maca is Maca gun in Chinese, gun meaning root. So it's basically Maca root. So Maca gun in Chinese, and it enters the spleen and kidney and is sweet, warm, and possibly slightly bitter. It tonifies qi, nourishes blood, tonifies the kidney, supports kidney jing, and harmonizes the triple jia, or the triple warmer. So that kind of makes sense. If we're talking about fertility issues, this all kind of makes sense. And menopausal issues as well. A published paper in a scientific journal, I'm saying it that way because I don't think I've ever seen this before, a published paper in a scientific journal that talks about the Chinese functions of a non-Chinese herb. But here was It was a Chinese paper. It was a team, a team of Chinese, or at least several authors were Chinese. So a published paper in a scientific journal concludes maca possesses the traditional Chinese medicine property of warm and appears to strengthen spleen function. Well, that doesn't explain fertility as much. So I still think there's kidney stuff and kidney gene going on as well. So I kind of agree a little bit more with the White Rabbit Institute, but there was a published paper in a scientific journal that talked about Chinese medicine functions of a Western herb. I'm just amazed at that. So maca is not in either of our two texts, as I mentioned, looking at Western herbs from a Chinese medical perspective. Western herbs according to traditional Chinese medicine, and the energetics of Western herbs, the materia medica integrating Western and Oriental herbal medicine traditions. I mentioned those earlier. There were surprisingly a lot of comparisons. So maca is often referred to as a Peruvian ginseng. However, I think that refers to the importance of maca in Peru, just as ginseng is important to China and Chinese medicine, rather than having similar functions. In its functions, other than being adaptogenic, maca is not particularly similar to ginseng, and they should not be used interchangeably. They can be used together, however. So, this adaptogenic is something that you hear a lot about. Adaptogenic substances are often referred to as adaptogens, are substances believed to help the body manage stress and improve its ability to adapt to various stressors. So this is the sort of thing you take when you're not sure what's happening. You're just, you're kind of stressed out. Or there are things stressing you out physically. So that'd be good to do. Tant, who wrote an article in 2024, compares maca with ashwagandha and shatavari, both Ayurvedic herbs. She says these three natural herbs, shatavari versus maca versus ashwagandha, are similar in many ways. They are all considered adaptogenic herbs. Yet they are somewhat diverse in their benefits, making comparing how they might support your specific needs challenging. Maca is often touted for improving energy and libido in both men and women. It may also preserve cognitive function, has shown promise with digestive and respiratory issues, and supports a healthy inflammatory response. In Ayurveda, shatavari is revered as the queen of herbs for its ability to support already healthy fertility and vitality. It has become widely used as a tonic for women, supporting female reproductive health from period to menopause. In that regard, it is similar to maca, as both herbs encourage the proper balance of hormones. Shatavari has powerful antioxidant properties which enhance immune function and support a healthy inflammatory response. As an adaptogen, it helps relieve the effects of stress and aids in sustaining energy levels. In traditional Ayurvedic medicine, ashwagandha is known as a rasayana, a rejuvenator. It improves cognitive function, enhances energy levels, and facilitates sleep. Like maca and shatavari, ashwagandha is celebrated for its adaptogenic properties, helping the body manage stress and feelings of worry and apprehension. It is a regenerative tonic that supports the nervous system, making it a popular supplement for many dealing with the pressures of modern life. If you want to know more about ashwagandha, I did a whole Spurbs Herbs on it, and it was interesting. It gets into a lot of Ayurvedic medicine as well, so you can go check that out. So shatavari versus maca versus ashwagandha each offer unique health benefits that support wellness for both men and women. Each herb is strong enough to stand on its own, yet combined, they may provide a more well-rounded approach to smoothing out bothersome symptoms. Another article compares ginseng and maca. Ginseng, Panax ginseng, and maca, sometimes called Peruvian ginseng, are often compared as similar health-promoting herbs. Both Panax ginseng and Lepidium meyenii, Maca Root, are a special class of herbs known as adaptogens. So we have that word again, adaptogens. Adaptogens create non-toxic, non-specific effects that help the body properly respond to the everyday stresses of life. Both offer support for three types of stress: environmental, including pollution and radiation; physical, including wound healing and integumentary; and psychological, emotional, and situational. Both of these adaptogens also promote a healthy immune system, enhance cognitive function, support mental health, and help with metabolic functions. As adaptogens, both help to improve a person's overall response to stress. Evidence shows that maca in particular may help to improve mood when taken over time. Both help protect against age-related cognitive decline. Both should be considered as part of a comprehensive Alzheimer's prevention plan. Maca offers increased energy levels along with improvements in mood. Ginseng supports positive responses to prolonged stress, including exercise-induced stress, and may support better athletic endurance. Both support better reproductive health. Ginseng may boost testosterone levels, increasing sex drive and overall sexual function, particularly in men. Yes, it's not, and I would include it in a lot of formulas that would do that, but that wouldn't be my main ingredient for doing that in those formulas for me as a Chinese herbalist. Going back to this study, Maca has successfully treated erectile dysfunction, ED, sexual dysfunctions from SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor medications, those are antidepressants in women, and reduced sex drive due to menopause. Limited research also suggests maca can increase sperm concentration. Again, we had that whole thing earlier that some colors may do that better than others. While ginseng creates no notable difference to menopause symptoms, Maca Root does reduce some of these symptoms like hot flashes, sweats, and mood problems, which is better for sexual dysfunction. Ginseng may be better for sexual dysfunction in men, while maca seems to work better for women. Both support better metabolic health by curbing chronic inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, supporting heart health, including cholesterol levels and high blood pressure, reducing oxidative stress, and improving immune function. And I want to say that while I can do all those things, none of those things would be reasons that I would prescribe either of these at this point. There are better things for each one of those functions than these herbs, but these certainly can help support other herbs in helping those things. So that's our comparisons with other herbs. Let's talk about the contents of maca. So Gonzalez, who had a review article, says the hypocotyls, or the tuber of maca, are 13 to 16% protein and rich in essential amino acids. So that's useful. Not only is it relatively high in protein, but it's also rich in essential amino acids, which are those that we do need to, we can make the non-essential amino acids, but we cannot make the essential amino acids. We have to get them from our diet. So it's great that they're rich in those. Fresh maca is 80% water and high in iron and calcium. Dry maca has 10.2% proteins, 59% carbohydrates, 2.2% lipids, and 8.5% of fiber, as well as fatty acids, including enolaic, palmitic, and oleic acids. Other minerals include copper, zinc, potassium, and others. Gonzalez continues to describe what he calls secondary metabolites, including macaridine, macamides, and maca alkaloids are only found in this plant. Macaines are unsaturated fatty acids. Other compounds include sterols, as beta-sitosterol, camposterol, and stigmasterol. And we've talked about most of those in previous episodes of Superb's Herbs. Continuing with Gonzalez, different glucosinolates. Glucosinolates are the aromatic glucosinolate glucotropiolin have been described within maca. Benzoglucosinate has been suggested as chemical marker for maca biological activity. However, this has been discarded since glucosinolates may easily metabolize to isothiocyanates and these in other smaller metabolites. So there you go. That's the contents. Let's talk about the science. There are several reviews of the medicinal effects of maca. De Silva Letao Perez looked at maca's use as a neuroprotective, an aid for dermatological conditions, learning aid, fertility, diabetes, energy, and as anti-fatigue, insecticide, and antioxidant. They concluded the Peruvian maca is highlighted in the literature in the treatment of several diseases and dysfunctions. However, there is a lack of studies in humans in the application of maca in food products to evaluate its potential pharmacological functions. The different colors of root root litter were investigated in these studies in dietary supplements, ethanolic and methanolic, and aqueous extracts, and others. However, extrinsic and intrinsic factors related to cultivation in the form of extraction can diversify its pharmacological function due to different bioactive groups obtained. In other words, it may not be the colors, it may be where and how it's grown. So basically they're saying we need more, they were saying that we need more research. There's not a lot of human research. Another systematic review looked primarily, remember I love my systematic reviews, looked at primarily at sexual dysfunction and menopausal symptoms as well as other conditions. They concluded on the basis of the studies included in this review, Maca appears to be effective at treating a range of conditions other than sexual dysfunction and menopausal symptoms. While people could benefit from the use of Maca, studies with more rigorous methods and reporting are warranted to improve the reliability and precision of the results. Standardized doses, durations, and extraction methods should be established to facilitate a meta-analysis, and further research into the safety and potential side effects of Maca should be conducted. So in other words, they're kind of, without a lot of evidence, saying there's some basis here, but they're also saying we need a lot more evidence. So, and finally, a systematic review of the use of Maca to improve semen quality concluded the results of a systematic review provide suggestive evidence for the effectiveness of Maca in improving semen quality. However, the total number of trials, the total sample size, and the risk of bias of the included studies prevent the drawing of firm conclusions. More rigorous studies are warranted. I think we have one more. Another systematic review by the same lead author examining menopausal symptoms concluded the results of our systematic review provide limited evidence for the effectiveness of Maca as a treatment for menopausal symptoms. However, the total number of trials, the total sample size, and the average methodological quality of the primary studies were too limited to draw firm conclusions. Furthermore, the safety has not been proved yet. Therefore, the efficacy and safety should be tested in larger studies. So I'm not seeing a ton of evidence for these effects at this point. We'll summarize this in a little bit. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about drug-herb interactions. Literature search did not find any general drug-herb interactions involving Maca, including specifically cytochrome P450 and P-glycoprotein interactions. The American Herbal Products Association's Botanical Safety Handbook puts this herb in interaction class A, herbs for which no clinically relevant interactions are expected. So not a high risk for drug-herb interactions. So let's talk about some of the concerns we have about Maca. A review of Maca says, while most studies report good tolerance towards Maca, there are some exceptions to consider since transient adverse events such as gastrointestinal upset, headache, and irritability were reported, and other compromising effects such as vaginal bleeding and a manic episode in individuals were also found. The occurrence of adverse effects appears to vary among individuals, suggesting that Maca's impact may be influenced by factors such as individual physiology, dosage, and duration of use. WebMD says health authorities rate Maca Root and Maca powder as generally safe, but some users have reported side effects. These include moodiness, cramping, stomach distress, and insomnia. In addition, some women say that Maca affected their menstrual cycles. Those who are pregnant or breastfeeding should not use Maca as there is not enough information about its safety. Since Maca seems to affect sex hormones, those with hormone-sensitive cancers should avoid it. These cancers include ovarian, breast, endometrial, and uterine. In addition, those with fibroids in the uterus should not take it. That was WebMD. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center says subjective reports of altered menstrual cycles, moodiness, cramps, gastritis, and insomnia. Flu-like symptoms and vomiting were reported in one study, but it is unclear if these were caused by Maca. Prolonged intermenstrual bleeding, elevated testosterone in a woman in her 30s who ingested Maca powder 1 teaspoon daily to improve energy levels and libido. So that was one case study. Having said all that, the American Herbal Products Association's Botanical Safety Handbook puts this herb in safety class 1, herbs that can be safely consumed when used appropriately. And that's where we go. That's the end. So summary, we started our discussion today by looking at the future of medicine. Boy, did we look at the future of medicine. And from there, we did our deep dive into Maca Root or Lepidium meyenii. While the evidence is still light, there is some for its use in men's and women's sexual health and menopause, as well as other conditions. And it appears to be quite safe in general. It's used as a food source by some people. So that makes it relatively safe. Usually makes that relatively safe. So, I think a lot more evidence needs to get there. I don't think from this, I always like to, with the summary, I always like to say, okay, would I recommend this or prescribe this to my patients? And I don't think I'm there. This is one that I think has some interesting research on it, but it's not enough for me to say, okay, I feel comfortable prescribing this. But at the same time, it's interesting, and I want to keep an eye on it. And if some good evidence comes out, I think this would definitely be on my list of potential supplement to recommend to patients in specific situations. So, and those being sexual, health, men's and women's sexual health, and menopause in general. The other ones, I think there are other herbs that probably are stronger than a lot of the other functions that maca is purported to do. Overall, another interesting herb that needs some more research. In our next episode, we will be exploring another interesting Chinese herb, Bai Zhi, Angelica dihurica radix, or Angelica root. This herb is in the Chinese medical subcategory of warm, acrid herbs that release the exterior under the category of release the exterior herbs. It is helpful for certain types of colds and helps unblock the nose and clear dampness. So that's one of its big functions, is the nose. It goes to the nose. And as usual, we will be exploring something a little different. Please join us for this fascinating episode. See you in 2 weeks. Not one, but 2. I'd just like to say thank you very much. If you like this podcast, please do us a favor. Give us a 5-star rating in your favorite podcast app. And we thank you for even thinking about doing that. We really appreciate it. And of course, we'd love it if you were to sign up and subscribe. And you can do that on YouTube. You can do that on any of your favorite podcast apps. We'd love that as well. And don't forget our amazing continuing education deal. www.integrativeMedicineCouncil.org/CEUS1. And you can always get in touch with me at drgreg@spurbsherbs.com or at our website, www.spurbsherbs.com. That's SPERBSHERBS.com. And as usual, we have quite the bibliography. Thank you very much.
Spurbs Herbs.
The proceeding was presented by Dr. Greg Sperber. We would like to thank Janelle for all her support and everybody else who contributed to this program.
Timothy Dobbins,
Rogers,
Campbell.